Small business owners, entrepreneurs, medium startups, and VCs, this one's for you. Welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line, Balancing Evolution with Execution, hosted by Elevate Talent Solutions founder and CEO, Ron Miller. Through Ron's own hard-won wisdom, along with an array of luminaries across the entrepreneurial ecosystem, you'll glean priceless wisdom that will help you see past the day-to-day grind and into the future where you can check off the day's to-do list and achieve innovation and elevation to ensure your business is future-proofed. Fulfilling and profitable, it's time for Beyond the Bottom Line, balancing evolution with execution. Take it away, Ron.
All right. And hey, everybody, welcome back and welcome to today's episode of Beyond the Bottom Line, Balancing Evolution with Execution. So whether you're a longtime listener or a fresh recruit to the no fluff, no BS conversations we bring, this show is all about starting, growing, and scaling your business for long-term success without the corporate jargon and motivational nonsense that we see so much of out there. And today we're going to take a dive into the very wild world of email marketing, because let's be honest, in business, if you are not getting noticed, you are just another background extra in a straight to DVD sequel. And for those of you that have listened, I'm going to make a lot of movie references. And when you meet my guest today, you'll kind of understand why. So she and I are very well aligned in kind of how our speaking goes. So we're going to have some fun with this today. And for all my 80s and 90s movers lovers out there, let's settle one of the most important questions in marketing history. And that simply is, how did Abe Froman become the Sausage King of Chicago? Because there's really only one answer: killer marketing, right? How else does somebody named Abe Froman become a Sausage King in Chicago, right? You don't just stumble into sausage royalty, right? You build a brand, you stand out, you sing in a parade, and you dominate your market. Maybe you look a little dapper in your vest that you're wearing to lunch right there. So, and to help us break it all down today, I'm bringing in someone who knows exactly how to turn a business into a digital powerhouse and why your email marketing strategy should be freaking the Catalina Wine Mixer of your industry. So joining me today is Lanie Belcastro, the mastermind behind LMB Digi Marketing. So buckle up, because we're about to prestige worldwide the hell out of your marketing strategy and take a fun, unfiltered deep dive into what really takes to stand out and scale. So let's get into it and welcome Lanie.
Thank you, Ron. It's so fun to be here. And I'm totally loving all of the instant Ferris Bueller references. I love it. I love it all.
You gotta have a little fun with this, right? And it's all about standing out a little bit. And for anyone that has been to like the Small Business Expo, or maybe you were at the one in Atlanta, or Lanie and you've seen her speak, she brings a lot of energy and a lot of fun and a lot of references into what she speaks about, especially for a position of knowledge. So we want to make sure we're having fun with this too, because we really align, right? We've had some fun guests, but I've been looking forward to this for like 2 weeks now. So,
well, thank you. That's a lot of pressure. But yes, I do love my 80s, 90s pop culture. And I feel like talking about email marketing is, it's interesting to me and it's so needed. If I'm going to get up and talk to a bunch of people, I got to make it fun for myself and the audience.
Oh, I can
gather all of the 80s-ness in there.
I love how you tie it together. And I mean, and let's be honest, like, listen, I know from my own self, like I have no game when it comes to any type of email marketing. I have a zero, right? I am the Cameron of email marketing at this point. So kind of getting a new perspective on it and a new spin is helpful, because so many of us, I get on every morning and I probably have about 30 emails from people trying to get business from me that delete. So there's a formula in it, and how do you win that algorithm arms race, right? But I wanted to kind of introduce you first and kind of establish, like, you have a long background in marketing coming into this. And very impressively, a lot like Ferris Bueller missing days of school 9 times, you have been in this business now on your own for 9 years. So you are absolutely doing something right. So delve in a little bit about, your background and really what inspired you to start L&B and what's been kind of your recipe for success for so long.
Sure. So gosh, it feels every time I talk about this, it just brings to the forefront how old I am. So it's just so funny. It just gets worse and worse. But so I have been in email marketing since it probably hit the scene for business in 2007. I went to school for marketing, but that was like pre-technology, pre-email marketing days. So I really just self-taught myself the email platforms that were out there in the beginning because I'm a total tech nerd. I was working in media companies in New York. I was in the marketing departments. And then once things like Exact Target and Salesforce started to basically be introduced to the industry, I dove in and I learned the platforms and I realized that this is a passion of mine. So I stuck with email marketing while I was in New York. And then when I moved to Atlanta in 2013, I was working for a great financial tech firm doing email marketing. I had always wanted my own company, but living in Manhattan in your 20s, you can't afford anything. So that wasn't
No, that's not true. Come on.
never not happening, considering I was buying like 99-cent slices of pizza to live off of. So I couldn't do it then. And once I moved to Atlanta, and obviously cost of living changes, and I had more experience under my belt as well, I was poached by a startup. It was basically your classic story of being poached by a startup, and they promise you the world of saying you can come here and create your own marketing and it'll be great and you have all this money. And then you get there and it's a big fat lie and you realize you're probably going to get laid off within 6 months. So I started to look for full-time jobs again and networked my butt off. And what I found was that more people were saying, we're not hiring full time, but we are hiring consultants. So we'll give you some projects to work on in the meantime. And that just kind of snowballed. And I realized this is probably a business that I can have. It's just my own email marketing consulting business. And so I started that in 2015. And here we are, almost 10 years later. My God. And I really try and focus on just doing the email marketing audits for platforms because I just love to untangle knots, but also work on the email marketing strategy for people. That was a long-winded way of giving you my bit. Again, so many years you covered.
Oh, well, all right. So further thing let's unravel this knot for everybody listening or watching. So Lanie and I are right around the same age group. And we both started in business when we were 12 years old. Labor laws were a lot different back in the 80s, right? So Lane, when you say you're old, we're not that old. We started a lot younger than they did today.
Oh, so basically we're like 20.
Pretty much.
Not grow up.
At least in my brain, I'm still somewhere in my late 20s. My daughter will say something different, but in my brain, that's where I'm at yet.
I agree. We are the Ferris Buellers.
100,000%.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. When you kind of talk a little bit about untangling knots, I'd really like to kind of delve into what your experience has been, because listen, I've been with a couple different organizations over my career and I've seen a lot of different versions of this. I almost, for myself on the recruiting and ops side, I really kind of tie the knots that you're talking about into the same kind of knots that we see with AI now in recruiting and outreach messaging, right? And you have different types of email marketing and marketing in general. We've all been through the years through different facets of that with, listen, I'll go date myself too, because when I started in business, we didn't have the internet, right? Our marketing was flyers and drop-offs and handouts and packets and pamphlets. And you had to have the personality with it to make it stick. And I think some of that, to your point in networking your butt off, I think some of that goes hand in hand with the email marketing, but we have everything so knotted up in quick, easy, least amount of touches, very little training. messaging doesn't go out. So there's probably millions and millions of emails today that never even get open
Right. Right.
because they don't have the right kind of marketing. So I'd love to get your perspective on how has really the email marketing in general evolved, and how do you really start to find your place? Like what's working and what's failing today, and how do you start winning that algorithm race to get noticed?
Yeah, it really is getting harder and harder, and it makes my job harder and harder because when you think back to early days of email, I mean, there were no privacy laws, there were no rules and regulations on
Yeah.
what best practices were. So we were kind of just the wild, wild west. And we were like, oh, there's this platform that can send thousands of emails all at once. We'll just plop in a big old list and put a sales pitch together and we'll hit the send button and it'll be fine. And it
Right.
was fine for a while. But there really wasn't a lot of segmenting and targeting going on. There really wasn't any sort of strategy around it. And I think over the years, people have found that that is more and more important to have a strategy, to look at your list and say, you know what, not every single person needs to get my message. And for the group that we do want to have receive our message, what is that message? Let's actually think about it a little bit harder than just saying, "Hey, do you wanna buy my stuff?" Because that doesn't work. Uh,
It doesn't. That's not a strategy.
I know, you would think so, given all of the spam emails that we get today. I mean, I get between LinkedIn and email, I think the more sales pitch I get, I mean, I'm just marking everyone as spam at this point. So, I think that's a huge piece of it is the spam laws that have been put in place. As much as it makes my job difficult, it's amazing to have those rules because it forces people to build a strategy. You have to have thought process behind it. And yes, there's so much AI out there now that you can use to help you, but it can't be everything that you're doing. So you can't rely on AI. I'm sure we will be in the future, but people still want that human connection. And I think people realize that with email, yes, it's an email, but they're looking to build that relationship through email with you.
People want, and I can only speak from the recruiting side specifically,
Mhm.
and this is where I kind of tie it in. But on the sales side, I struggle with this, and then I'm not a big self promoter, so I am horrible at this.
Me too.
But I'm like, on the recruiting side, I've taught in my advanced recruiting classes that I've done in how to connect differently, because you could use neurodiversity to
Mhm.
really get candidates to do things that you want them to do, because you want to excite certain sections of their brain to get them to respond and get them to respond in a way that you're looking for. And I'm assuming if you have the right messaging, you're kind of probably doing something similar than with your email campaigns.
Correct. Yes. You have to have some sort of message that is crafted specifically to that audience. It can't just be kind of like throw it all out there and see what happens kind of thing. But yeah, there is a lot of thought behind it. And I think that's super, super important for people to know is that no matter what industry you're in, you need to have that relationship with people.
Yeah. Well, how do you, without giving away the farm, right? Because, we want everyone at the end to go look up L&B Digi Marketing, just to, maybe it's an option for you guys. And I'll share, again at the end, listen, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is on this episode, because my intention for all the listeners is I'm going to partner with Lanie here in the next probably 30 to 45 days,
Oh, yay.
because I believe that you have the process that I've been looking for as I kick off my marketing campaign. Because what's important to me is not to be spammy. That's not what my business is about. I want to be more intentional to a specific audience of people I want to help.
Mhm.
So I'm going to report back on the success, or complete and utter massive success, right? We're not going to go. It's either going to be successful or so massively successful that,
Right.
but I want
It's
to share,
Yep,
I
it's
want to
always
share my
color
experience.
color.
But how do you start to really separate out in that process? Like, I look at LinkedIn and I look at like my target audience, and I can't tell you how many conversations I've had about this through the last year to say, I struggle to whittle down to exactly who, and the messaging is a little bit different at different decision maker levels,
Mhm.
and it also depends, I think, on the size of business.
Right.
So how do you start to formulate, like for somebody that maybe is new and starting to get out there, like what would you offer them as a way to start to look at and separate themselves?
Yeah. So if somebody is already in the game and they've been trying different things and nothing's really working, that's usually what type of client comes to me is they're just really frustrated with trying to do something the same way over and over, trying different systems, and then they blame the system and they get really frustrated when it's really not the system. I mean, it could be depending on what you're using, but it's not the system itself. It's more so digging into the back end of who's on your list and how did they get there. Because the beauty of these email platforms is not just to build an email and hit send, it's to look behind the scenes, behind the curtain to say, I have 500 people on my list. Where did they come from? Because you have that visibility. You can say that these people over here filled out my contact form. Could be lead, it could be garbage. But this person over here, along with 500 other people, they actually filled out a form interested in my service. So those messages are going to be completely different because while a contact us form might just have a simple generalized welcome series to say, hey, who am I? Which, by the way, every company should have a simple welcome series, which is so overlooked. Um, it's just one of those to-dos that's email marketing 101 that you should start with is to have that welcome series to introduce yourself, let them know how you can help, not sales pitch. But then to those people that have filled out the form that are interested in your service, or maybe you met them at an event and they're interested in your service, you're going to email them in a totally different way because you know that they are a bit warmer of a lead. And you can craft your message to say, hey, I saw that you are interested. Here's ways that we've helped people in the past. I think this might apply to you, type of thing. Not in those words, of course, but I think there's definitely ways to just take the time to look and see where your audience is coming from. And that will start to get the wheels turning on what type of message to put together.
Interesting. And you know what? I'm going to be honest. So this is the first time that I have heard, and listen, I have worked with marketers my whole career, now corporate marketers, right? A lot of them are like to be like, oh, I used to work at Dr. Pepper and I am the one that came up with, this part of Dr. Pepper. And it's like, dude, that's great, but it's Dr. Pepper. It's going to sell itself like a McRib, you could come
Right.
up with anything. The McRib is going to sell, right? You could like put a skull and crossbones on it and claim fame to that. Anyways, I'm getting off on a diversion here, but
But the McRib is worth it.
it is worth it once a year, right? And
Yeah.
that is why probably we don't have massive obesity here.
No, nothing to do with
But
it.
this is the first time I'm really hearing somebody in marketing say you need a welcome series.
Mm,
Like, so,
yeah.
and listen, I almost was guilty of this, and I stopped myself because I was like, dude, you get up every day and you go to work upstairs in your office and you open up your email and it's delete, 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 because you clicked on something one time and you wound up on 70 lists that are
Yes.
being sold, because we get those emails every day of, I have a list specific to your business and you know nothing of it. Anyways, I digress before I go off on an angry tangent of it. But I've not heard anyone, even in all the years that I've led sales teams,
Mm-hmm.
talk about a welcome series.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
how does that work? Like, what is just, if I'm Joe Schmo out here, I just started my business, which right now I am Joe Schmo. I just started my business last year. So I don't have a lot of people that have downloaded my form. A lot of it is through connections. A lot of it is through people that I am searching through LinkedIn Sales Navigator to match up first, and people that I've met at conferences. So I have some different lists, but what does that series look like? I mean, is it a simple, hey, I'm Ron Miller
Yeah.
and this is what I do?
I mean, it can be, yeah. I mean, that should definitely be the first email that goes into it and it's one of the welcome series. It's such a basic marketing 101 type of thing that everyone should have, but it's the most ignored. So I'm not surprised at all that you haven't heard of that, but it is something that every single company should have because it's such an easy win in the building relationship process. So welcome series, whether you met someone at an event or you found them on LinkedIn, the biggest thing is asking permission to email them. So I always say the term lead magnet is so overplayed, but I mean, it still is something that we all need. Get a landing page with a form and a free offer and throw it out there to your LinkedIn or social media so you can collect email addresses organically. And from there, you want to put them all into a welcome series. And that first email should always be, here's who I am, what I do, and what type of communication you can expect to hear from me. Do you want to receive these emails? Always ask permission because it seems silly, but first of all, it's definitely the law now. Those laws are strict at this point to have permission to email. If you scrape email addresses off LinkedIn just because they're there, that does not give you permission to send that email. So always ask. And then in the end user's mind, the reader, they're thinking, oh, this person actually cares. They're not going to be that annoying one in my inbox just saying, hey, I have this list for you. Do you want to buy it? Or do you want a million appointments a day? They're going to realize that's not you, which is half the battle. So they will not delete your emails. And then maybe just have 2 or 3 or 4 more emails in addition to just get them familiar with who you are. Have them send once a week, every other week, however you want to do it, just not every day. And just say, here's how I've helped people in the past. Here's a free piece of content for you or a free asset that you can use. And then, of course, you're always going to have a link to your services in there, or at least want to get them on the phone or a Zoom call, rather. The phone is so 80s. We don't want to like pick up the phone and dial. We want to just get them on a Zoom call or meet them in person if we can. But that's really the goal, is to just, the welcome series is such an easy win to build a relationship and just get them on that introductory phone call where you can then try and sell and work your magic.
I absolutely love that. You know what? For me, like I look at, and I'm not going to share the terminology because I want people listening to get more intrigued about advanced recruiting classes and how do you really become a recruiter instead of a talent acquisition specialist. Like, I don't know if I've ever shared that with you. To me, those are 2 different jobs, and I know that the lines are blurred, but to me, talent acquisition, it says it in the title exactly what you do. You acquire talent, which means you post, you pray, you sit, and then you bitch and moan that you have too many responses because you just throw it out on one of the 4 jobs boards, spend a gazillion dollars, cry that you don't have good candidates. You just acquire talent. Recruiters go and connect with people. It's a lost art.
True.
And I want to teach people how to be good recruiters, but even on that recruiting side, and I've never equated this until you just said it. My God, if I open up my email and I had something more personalized like that, even though I know it was generic, but someone is taking a moment to recognize that it was generic and an introduction and asking permission and giving me something, I might actually click on that shit and say,
isn't that amazing how you build that human connection when not being selfish actually works?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so overlooked because people are so reactive and we're so busy and we're just wanting to get stuff out the door. But if we just like stop and have that welcome series set up, it's all automated. So all you have to do is put a form out there, make people give their email addresses, and they automatically go into the series. So once you set it up, you can kind of forget it. I mean, check on it every now and then, but you don't have to for every single person that submits a form say, oh, I'm going to go manually send this email now. Like, you don't want to do that. So yeah, it's an easy win, and it definitely will reduce the amount of spam complaints that you get if you're getting those.
Yeah. Well, when you start getting spam complaints, I don't know how it works on the email side, but I know on the recruiting, on the tech side, I used to say this all the time. And there was actually a stat at one of the companies at a corporate meeting that I did where I pointed out that the number of people over the last 2 years that had opted out of text or identified us as spam was almost the same number as people that we had paid overall as an organization the year before. I said, I kind of presented it, and it was like, we paid like 35,000 people, and we had 33,000 people over the last 2 years say, don't text me ever again.
Right.
Texting so are you?
Whole other ball of wax.
But how does it work on the email side that you don't get sent to spam or you don't get marked? Like, you could find your way to that circular file really easy.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a whole deliverability topic, which, when you do set up these platforms, number one, if you are mass emailing just from like your business Gmail account and not a legitimate platform like a MailChimp or a HubSpot, ActiveCampaign, something like that, you will be spammed, and it does not look good for your domain. So domain reputation is a whole thing where if you are mass emailing from just your Gmail or your Outlook, the domain reputation goes down, and that increases your chances for hitting the spam folder and not even going to the inbox. So that's why I constantly like to tell people, make sure your list is organic and you have your domains validated. So one of the things I do is if they have a platform in place, I do an audit where I go into the back end of the system and say, okay, is this email sending domain validated? Meaning your SPF key, this is getting kind of technical, but your SPF keys and your DKIM and DMARC, is all of that set up for success? And it's validated, nothing is damaged, your reputation is legit. That's the first thing, because if those have failed, you're definitely going right into spam. So there is a science to just the overall setup of your platform, but also on top of that, if that's not validated and you're just finding emails and sending it, your reputation is ruined. And then eventually your domain gets blacklisted and you can't even use it. So that's a whole topic we could go into.
Well, that full disclosure right out here. I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to try and make this funny in a way. But so as Gen Xers and as people that have been in corporate, right now, you've been out a lot longer than me, but the corporate speak gets stuck in your head and it's hard to deprogram.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure when I decided, you know what, I am going to do this, I am making the leap, I needed some time to deprogram myself, because from a sales perspective, you are taught, like Tommy Boy, to take the bear claw and squish the hell out of it, right? Like, I get it stuck right here, right? But that's what you're taught, because it's sell, close. Yep. And it's push a message. I made a joke online to a common friend of ours yesterday, actually, who introduced us, Don.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had shared something and he had made a comment about, he's like, have you ever played, corporate bingo? And I said, Don, let me tell you, like, one time we had hired at a company that I was at. I did not hire this gentleman, but they hired a sales guru who, every week would call in late from the next exotic location and be like, hey, it's me, Stan, and I'm here in West Africa today on my yacht, and it's a beautiful day, and I'm so happy to be here with you guys. And today we're going to dive into closing the sale, and basically what I'm going to tell you is just tell them that you're buying it.
Yeah.
And they're like, so it gets drilled in your head. And we had made a whole big old car night of it, slow and bad. And anyways,
it does point bad though.
But like that programming is there. So when you start diving into this and you just go, how many times, what percentage would you say of people that come to you and be like, lady, listen, I'm burned. What do I do? What is the percentage of businesses you pick up and try and untangle that knot with?
Almost a good amount of them. There's very few clients that I've worked with that have had a decent setup and a decent system in place and decent messaging. It's very much like you said with Tommy Boy, instead of just saying like, oh, I really want some chicken wings. Sorry, the kitchen's closed. He then goes into a whole story about how he's an awful salesman, and he's telling the story and it's hilarious, but it's also like he's building a background in a
Right.
relationship. So then he gets his chicken wings. So it's definitely more. That was a very long way of answering your question, but it's definitely more businesses than.
Well, that obviously, this is why you and I probably can't be unsupervised on these for too long, because we'll just go off on tangents that we'll get in some of the audience, but we'll have a good time anyway. So,
Look,
I think it kind of goes to say then, like, listen, you can think that you are a sales giant, that you've produced in the past, so you have those answers. So this is easy as pie to get going. But at the end of the day, if you haven't really done it and understand it, like you've used a couple of terms that I've never even heard of and some that I have,
Yeah.
but marketing is not my background.
Right.
So I'm going to do what I think is best, which
Mhm.
is probably 50 or 70% wrong. And there are downstream consequences from that really delay growth. And for a new business owner coming in, especially, and this is
Right.
something that I preach constantly, from building culture to building initiative to building ops, and really understanding and finding your key team members from 2 years down the road now,
Right.
that if you build it the right way from moment one, you're not untangling a knot. You get to change your business, Lanie, to teaching them the right way to double knot their shoe.
Exactly. Yep. You realize that you have all these standing relationships. And it's same with recruiting. If you are having a good relationship with people from 5, 10 years ago, they're going to remember you and they're going to want to come back and use you again. So, if you are starting your business and you're going in one direction, that's amazing. And you can keep going in that direction. But if you realize, hey, I've got this relationship over here that might be a different service completely, you have the ability to kind of shift and do both or one or the other. So it really is just, you get more bees with honey
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. Just be an honest person
This-
and try to not, spam people so much with just sales pitches. And it's what you get.
You mean I shouldn't be like purchasing that guy that keeps emailing me about how he has this pitch deck that got him 36 customers in 2024? Like, that's not real.
No, probably not. We're all guilty of being intrigued because you're like, man, that sounds nice. But then you're like, this isn't real.
It feels like that impulse buy that, stores love to do. They put that little stuff right there by the register, so you just grab it. And I think sometimes that's where some people's marketing strategy is, man, if I could just get them to buy on their way out to something small,
Yep. Yep.
money's money. And do
Yeah.
you really want to build your business and your reputation that way? That's the question.
Yeah. Yeah. When I first started my business, I was doing every little thing in digital marketing. And I was like, I'll do social, I'll do SEO, I'll do all these things, everything. And then I realized a year in that I was burnout. I didn't like it, which probably meant I wasn't doing my best work doing social and SEO and all of these Google ads and all of these things. So I was like, you know what? I really am into the marketing automation and email game. I know it. I like it. I'm just doing it. So don't need to try and do everything.
Well, without digging into the numbers, I would bet you have more success in that than in
Mhm.
social selling. I think there's specific products, and correct me if I'm wrong. I can be way off base, and sometimes I just throw shit out there because that's how I feel or my experience. And
Mhm.
I've learned over the years I'm not always right, but I think social selling has a place for certain products
Yes.
or certain services
Mhm.
rather than social selling as a whole.
Exactly. Yeah, social selling is definitely useful and it's right there behind email marketing. When you look up the statistics, email marketing is the largest marketing channel that build brings in the highest revenue, and social is right under it. So there is a place for social selling, absolutely. It's just a matter of what's your product, does it belong on social? And at the end of the day, even if it is on social, you still want to wait to collect those emails because you don't own any of that. You do own, and I hate to use the word own, but once you have the email addresses that you've gotten from your lead magnets and they're in your own email platform, you're good. So if you happen to get kicked out of social, which so many people do, you lose all of your connections and there's no way to get those back really. So even if you're on social, still you need the email piece too. They go together.
There you
Mhm.
go. See, it's not a one thing works and something else doesn't. It all is intertwined.
Yep. It all goes together.
Well, and I think as your email marketing goes, your recruiting kind of goes with it.
Mhm.
I've worked with companies where I'm like, yeah, I start untangling the same things, Lanie, where
Yep.
you start getting into this stuff and their texts aren't going anywhere. There's limited response. They're not filling requests. Everything's coming from one or two resources and nothing is working the way that they intended. And you start
Right.
pulling that whole mess apart and you start to get to that back end and it's simple things that the rush to do it does not mean that it's going to be done well.
Exactly. That's usually the biggest obstacle is reactionary versus taking a step back and thinking about it.
So what advice would you give from over the years of somebody new coming into this that's listening, today to say, hey, this makes a lot of sense. I don't know. I got to look at L&B Digi marketing to see if it fits within my budget or,
Yeah.
does Ron Miller fit within my budget? And most of the time we don't, even though we're not expensive. Because let's
Right.
face it, like these startups, every cent counts until you get that first customer or two. Like, what would you say to somebody new that met you at a trade show? Be like, lady, just what are three things that I could do today to make a difference in how I set this up?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are just starting out, I would say definitely find yourself an email marketing platform that is truly an email platform. There are many out there that you can start out with for free. MailChimp, HubSpot, pretty much, I mean, most of them have a free trial. So I would definitely utilize that if you have a list. If you don't have a list, and it doesn't have to be thousands of people, it can be, even 50 people, that's fine. But if you don't have that, I would say definitely get a basic landing page with a form and something to give your audience to get them to give you their information so that you start to build your email list. But in addition to that, and just to grow your business in general, just get out there and network. I mean, network as much as you can, go to in person events, get the digital business cards, the physical business cards. And then if you're building a spreadsheet to start out with, that's fine. Just you can import that to your email platform later. But I would say networking and getting your face out there as much as possible on in person and in social, that's going to make all of the difference because people are going to remember you. And that's the best way to start the conversation. So don't just sit behind your computer. You have to actually get out and meet people. Or
No.
find you on LinkedIn. I mean, they will filter from LinkedIn. I shouldn't say that because I have built my business based on LinkedIn, but it is always good to just get out and have those conversations, whether it's on Zoom or in person.
Yeah. Well, and I agree. Like, I think part of that too is becoming a lost art where so many folks just think that you can just LinkedIn's the strategy. And you see it on the platform. I grew my business by 43 million bazillion dollars just because of LinkedIn. I like to call bullshit on that most
That's
of the time.
BS. Yeah. That's not.
But I'm like, there is validity to the platform.
Hmm.
And in terms of interaction, LinkedIn likes to always kind of keep it weird because they
Yeah.
change the algorithm. So like some days you show up and other days you don't. And then I don't think it's people being weird. It's just like yesterday, something that somebody I connected with a long time ago all of a sudden showed up on my feed from a post that they had from 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
The
Yeah. Yep.
post never showed in my stream, but somebody commented on it a week ago and it's just showing up now. It makes no sense to me.
Yep. Yeah. It's all a big game. And I think the key is just to be consistent, is just, even if you go on LinkedIn once a week, is if you go on every week, that's fine. And if you send an email every week, that's fine. Just being consistent with whatever it is you're doing is probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting when we start working together here shortly because, I have, and you'll enjoy us when we talk about the phone, and this, I'm going to show my 80s because right there is my phone saver.
Good. I love good Karate Kid reference.
And if you can't see it up here in the corner, Justice for Johnny right there.
There you
Right?
go. Yes.
Because you cannot win the All Valley Karate Tournament on an illegal kick. Really, you cannot. And you just can't, right? And what's funny is and here, we're going to get off topic. That's all right. But I love Cobra Kai, the TV show. What I love most about it is how they have spun the fact of, was Johnny really the bad guy?
No.
Or was Neil a bad guy? And they were equally as guilty because they were too similar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting spin when you take a step back from a one-sided story.
Yes. I love
Yeah.
that show. Yeah.
Now,
it is.
people are going to be deflated because they're being like, get your Dana LaRusso camp. And I'm like, listen, man.
Man, Johnny really wins you over in that series. He really
Yes.
You see his background and you're like, you know what? I get it, Johnny.
Yeah. The guy is trying. He is not
Right.
articulate. He's not overly educated. He's stuck in his ways, but he wants to change.
Yep.
And he wants to be better. He's just not ever dealt a hand to get there, which kind of resonates with myself, and it resonates with a lot of people, right?
Yep.
Not all of us get up every day and the world just opens up and shines bright and a unicorn comes out and a rainbow is there. We got to work for it. We got to hustle for it. And if you can get the right tools, the right people, the right connections, the right process, the right way to do things, you can build that future a lot faster than just grabbing, going, and here comes the meat wagon,
Yep.
All right. So there's so much in marketing that I want to talk about, but I also want to bait you to come back on the show because I always enjoy conversation with you. But So something though that I want to get to that, and I think is important too for individuals that have the personality and background, is you've now kind of diversified what you do. So you're taking your experience on the road and you started to get into the speaking side of things.
Yes.
Which, listen, I'm going to just give my opinion, right? For me, I always have a hard time with speakers because it's a lot of droning and you kind of sit there and I'm very judgy on, is your messaging generic a lot? And for me, there's only been probably 3 speakers that I have seen in the last 15 years that have gotten forward in my seat. One of them is Mary Lucas. I don't know if you know Mary Lucas, but I had the privilege of working with Mary for a long time at another company. And I've seen her do her Lunch, Meet, and Life Lessons. It's a book that I used to give my team. She is just an amazing, amazing speaker. I've seen Lauren Jones speak, and Lauren Jones drew me out of my seat. And then I saw somebody 2 years ago at SourceCon that the presentation he gave on neurodiverse recruiting, I literally stopped writing. That's how much he drew me in.
Wow.
And I didn't have the privilege of seeing you speak live at the Small Business Expo, but you were kind enough to share the pre-release video with me so I could see it because we were trying to work on something else. And I watched it. It drew me out of my seat.
Oh.
So your approach and the way that you tie in humor really, for me, it was stimulating in your approach on the topics. So how did you get into that and started to diversify what you do into something else, and kind of what inspired you to go that route?
Yeah. People have been telling me that I should speak because I've been in business for so long and I have this knowledge. And I was like, terrified of public speaking. I absolutely hated it. I was terrified of podcasts. I hated all of it. I was like, I don't want anyone like where the focus is on me. I was like, I'm not doing it. So I put it off for years. And then I had somebody who was hosting a conference here in Atlanta invite me to speak on his stage. And I was terrified, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to dive in and try it. And I was probably like a deer in headlights where I just stood there and I didn't have the humor in it. And I was trying to be like, well, if I'm speaking in front of people, I have to be like buttoned up and, serious. And so I did that and I watched it after. I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is not me at all. So I had another speaking engagement for a conference in Texas that same year. And I was like, you know what? I'm like, this audience is fun. I'm going to do a speech where I compare Reebok pumps to email marketing. And I had pictures of my family when we were kids, like wearing Reebok pumps. And I was so much more comfortable doing it. I was like, this is what I have to do. I was like, I just need to be myself and bring my own humor and talk some shit and it'll be fun and bring my movie quoting into it. And ever since then, I was like, oh, okay, I can do this now. I can still deliver knowledge and make it fun, but I have to put in my own personality to make me feel more comfortable and just get the audience engaged because, I mean, I had like Wayne's World quotes in there. I mean, it was just much, much more fun and people pay attention more. So I found that it's a lot more fun to do it, especially if you're just yourself. And then you're just in front of people more. So again, you're going to draw people in and they're going to want to talk to you more. So I'm 2 years into the speaking game and I'm working with the speaking coach and it's helping and it's getting more fun. So now I'm like, okay, where else can I go?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh,
It is a great way to kind of bring more people in.
I dipped my toe in myself recently
Mhm.
where, with the New Jersey Staffing Alliance, I volunteered myself to speak at their fall
Yeah.
symposium, the fall education conference. And, it was a very, very small group of people, but you had a good mix of, field level employees all the way up through owners. And I got myself extremely nervous going. So I like note cards and everything. And I mean, I've spoken before, not in that way. I'm used to giving presentations in front of large groups. So for me, I was like, yeah, I'll talk about recruiting. I'll talk about it all afternoon.
Yep.
And I got up there and I had a really great story about how to build, how recruiting and sales needed to intermingle in order to build something, and how when doing it a different way, I had 2 people on a team that had less than a year in staff and they closed $100 million national.
Wow.
Less than a year in. And I was telling the story and I got probably about 5 minutes in and I'd lost my place on my note cards already. And I'm standing there and I'm like, my heart's beating. My note cards are already in order. I got to slide on the board and I stopped. And I was just like, F this, put the cards away. And I just ripped it.
Yep.
And I just told the story and it was a lot different. So I kind of got the bug.
Yeah.
Wanted to kind of do it now, but I know I'm not at that level yet. But I'd like to think it, because anyone that knows me, if you listen and you know me, or you've worked on my teams, you always ask for a Ron Miller analogy because I was great at them, or I like to think I was, or a Ron Miller dad joke. But I quote movies all the time.
I would smoke you.
I'll tell you, when I catch up to you, challenge accept.
Yes. They'll love a good movie quote challenge.
Oh my goodness. But so lady, I absolutely loved having you on. Thank you for sharing background, your experience with us, giving those great little nuggets for people that are just starting out, calling out some things that'll help anyone at any level. And introducing some language. For me, I think when I met you and I started talking with you and I looked at your site, it was like, all right, this is somebody that actually has something that I believe is applicable to me in so many levels that I need to do something. This makes sense. Right. And I hope it makes sense to the audience. So I know we're going to drop all of your information when we release the episode. It'll be on all the platforms of where to get you. But for those of you beforehand, if you're looking to get a hold of Lanie, you can find her on LinkedIn or her website, which is lmbdigi marketing.com. So you can get her right there. And you do have a giveaway that you are offering to people that are listeners that come in that will share as well.
Yes, my email platform audit. So that is the first thing I always do with clients. We will do a deep dive into your email marketing system and make sure everything is set up correctly and make sure that you are ready to go and you're not spamming people and you're set up for success. So that is definitely something that a lot of people take advantage of.
Well, folks, a lot of people need to take advantage of that, right? Like just getting in there and doing like kind of health audit.
Right.
And I think it might just raise enough question marks to be like, hold on, if anything, I need to book time with her and take that. Because here's an important call out for me and probably for our listeners. You know, you get bombarded with all these experts, right? There are experts in recruiting, experts in sales, experts in marketing, experts in HR, experts in coaching. If I see one more coach try and contact me, I think my brain's going to explode.
Same.
You know, but here is somebody that I'm introducing you to that has been doing this for 10 years as her own business. So there is success that is behind that. It is not someone that has just been doing this for the last 6 months, has held 9 jobs in the last 5 years and linking themselves as an expert, which we all see in everything else that we do. So I strongly urge you to take a look at Lanie's site, take that help audit and reach out to her and book some time because I believe it can make a difference, especially early on.
Great. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yes, we will get everybody straightened out and we at least to have the conversation to see if, everybody's a good fit for that would be just the first step. So,
I like it. Before I let you go, so where are you speaking at next? Did you have another one booked?
I don't know. Well, yes, I do have a small event in Atlanta that I'm speaking. It's not a conference. It's just a small event here, but there's a couple things in the works that I have not finalized yet for the year, but hopefully there's a couple things that I'll be able to put out there soon.
Excellent. Well, take a look at Lanie's site, see where she's speaking. Atlanta, folks. I got a lot of friends down there. So if you're in Atlanta and you're one of my friends and connections, check her out. And Lanie, thank you so much for coming on. I greatly appreciate it. I really want to delve more into SEO, your world of online and really kind of open up some other avenues of discussion with you, because I think there's so much that you can bring through. And once we have you, we're also like to share the journey, what you've learned in the time that you've worked with my business, and maybe we'll have some success to share there firsthand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well,
this was fun.
Excellent. Well, Lanie, thanks again. And everybody that's on, again, we're going to put all of Lanie's information into the release. So you'll understand where to get her on LinkedIn, her email, a link to her offering for our audit as well. But you can go out there on her website beforehand and you can find her there. And again, we're going to wrap now on today's episode. And if you're still listening, Bueller, you've made it this far. So you're officially part of the Prestige Worldwide of Business Minds that we have brought you today. So thank you just for staying to the end, and a big shout out for listening. And make sure you hit that follow and the like and the share button down there, whatever platform you're on. And that really helps making this whole thing worth doing for all of you. I love bringing you real people that have no bullshit insights and entrepreneurs vesting in their hard-earned savings. We want to make a difference for all of you. And I want to bring you different thought leaders that understand not just how to build a business, but how to build it right. So thank you again, and appreciate listening. Until next time, keep it classy, San Diego. We are out, and we'll talk to you in a few. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond the Bottom Line. Do you have questions for Ron or today's guest about this episode? Reach out and your question might be featured on next week's mailbag. You can learn more about Ron and Elevate Talent Solutions at elevate-talent-solutions.com or or on LinkedIn. This podcast was edited and produced in partnership with Adrienne Ruthart, principal of boutique marketing firm ACR Ventures. Check her out at acrventures.com for all your small business marketing needs. Be sure to hit that follow button and send us love letters and episode ideas to Ron Miller at elevatetalentsolutions.net. Tune in next week, and thanks for listening.